you can see that here we have these controls on our JFrame, but they do not do anything. So now we just need to write some code so that we can get some action out of these buttons. Now that is when we are going to add the action listener. So when you click this, an event happens or event is fired, okay, and then we need to have some action listener which is listening to these actions and then would respond with some reply or reaction or some action against these clicks that we do on these controls. Okay, here we have our the frame 1 construct and we have added all these things. Okay, now the second part that we need to do is to add the action listener to it. Now as you know that we cannot have multiple classes here, right? So we use an interface which is called action listener. Now here it says that it cannot find the action listener, so let's see. We need to import something more here. Now you can see here we have the action listener here. So instead of writing this one, we can simply type the star to include all the classes or interfaces, right? Okay, what is wrong with this one? Frame 1 is not abstract and does not override abstract method action performed. Okay, now see, we are extending this one. We are implementing action listener, which means that this is an interface and we need to implement all the methods that are there in the interface, right? So that's why it says that frame is not implementing action performed method. So we need to implement that method. Now how are we going to do that? Okay, the method is, we have public void action perform, and the argument that is passed here is the action event, right? Action. Okay, we have the action perform method here and we need to include the override notation also. So here we have the method and the error that was shown here, it's gone, right? Okay, now what do we write here? Now this method would be called when we click a button, right? Meaning that the action has been performed and we need to reply to that action with something. Now the method that we are going to use here, it's not always useful, but it is useful in this case. This is the simplest way of handling the actions that happen on your form. So we have here, let's say first thing we need to check which button has been clicked. So then we know what to do. And to get which button has been clicked, we need to use the e variable or e object that we have here, which is of action event. So we say e dot, and we use here get action command. Now what does this do? Let's see again. You can see here it says returns the command string associated with this action. This string allows a model. Okay, command string means now this string that it's going to get is something that is on that control, meaning the name of that button, right? So we need to check that. We have equals, and here we can say, let's say count up. This is what we have written on the button, right? So if this happens, what do we need to do? Now we are actually trying to run. Let us just run this and see. Now you can see here we have a counter, here we have a text field and count up and count down. It means when I click this one, it's supposed to increment a number inside this text field. So it means here I need to have a variable which I can increase or increment. So we can put one here and we call this one as count. Okay, Now once we get to this, we need to increment the count, right? But after incrementing, we need to display this count in the text field, right? So now what was the name of the text field? It was text1. Then we say dot set text, right? And here we can put the counter, but now the counter is actually an integer value. So what we need to do, we need to use one string method, which is string dot value of, and then here we can say count, right? So this is what it's going to happen when we say count up. Similarly, we have the same thing. I will just copy and paste that, and let's say this one is count down, and this one is minus minus, and the rest remains the same. Then the last one is reset, and here what we need to do, we need to say count is equal to 0 because we are resetting it, and we reset it on the same place, right? So this is our action listener and action perform. So when we click the button, it's supposed to come here and do what we have put here. Means on count up it should increase, on count down it should decrease, and on reset it should reset to 0. So let's see. Now we need to add these buttons to our action listener also. That is the first part, or the part after adding the buttons. We need to add these buttons to our action listener and then call the action perform. So I just need to say button up dot add action listener, and this means the pointer to this class, right? So we have 3 buttons. We need to add the sequence that you need to use is, we create the frame, we create the object for our controls, then we set the layout, then we add these controls on our layout, and then we add these controls to our action listener, and then after that we create this method, the action perform, which is going to check that which button has been clicked. So let's see once again what it does. So now you can see the counter is working, right? And reset is 0. You can see it goes into minus also. Then you can reset. So this is the simplest way of adding your frame, controls, and action listeners and action perform.